Before we start today's episode, a quick announcement from supporters of this show, Go Venture. Did you know that personal financial literacy is increasingly being taught in schools and universities? Well, today they have a special offer and it's just for teachers. It's a free online course that will help you gain the wisdom to make better money decisions in your own life. And the course will also prepare you to teach personal financial literacy to students. The course allows you to learn at your own pace, and it uses experiential learning to keep you engaged from start to finish. Expand your career opportunities and gain the confidence to be a teaching superhero. Enroll in this course today. It's only free to teachers for a limited time. Go to teachingsuperhero.com. That's teachingsuperhero.com. Brought to you by MediaSpark, the makers of Go Venture. Are you looking for new and engaging ways to get your students up and moving in the classroom? Get out of the sit and get rut of teaching by checking out AmpedupLearning.com, a two-teacher-owned and operated company in Texas that is looking to gamify teaching with creative new activities for the classroom. From their FREC resources and escape rooms for social studies and science to speed squares and task cards for math and English, they have tons of teacher-created resources. So many good things up there. And don't forget to check out their apparel designed specifically for teachers. Look good and support teachers. That's something I can get behind. Use code HaugerHistory10 to save 10% on all items and follow them on social media at Amped Up Learning for their monthly giveaways of Amazon gift cards, lessons, and apparel. Man, supporting teachers while also supporting teachers, that sounds like something we could really get behind. And don't forget to use that code HaugerHistory10 to save 10% on all items at ampeduplearning.com. What a great way to start. Now let's move on to the show. Thank you so much for supporting Inspiring Teachers.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
And welcome to an administrative edition of Inspiring Teachers. I am Danny Hauger. Tavis Beam is in his woodshop classroom. I think he's cutting with some kind of laser cutter, and he's doing some kind of artwork that's going to go on top of a house that all the students are building. Always something cool over there. He'll talk to you about it in the next episode. But I'm here today to talk some East Bay education with Northgate High School principal Michal McAlister and former teacher, and he has bounced around to some wonderful sites in the East Bay and inspired a lot of people to challenge them academically. Michal, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's good to be here, Danny.
Hey, I've been wanting to speak with you for a while, and I always hear really good things about Northgate, and so I wanted to see what your philosophy was that leads that school, and also talk to you about what it was like being an 8th grade history teacher. And to get that started, what was it that made you come into education as a career? Is it something you always knew you wanted to do?
I absolutely fell into it. There was no plan in this at all. I mean, I was a history major at Cal. I absolutely loved going to class because you were always exposed to some amazing narratives and pathways that the human spirit and the cultural trajectory kind of went. I always thought that was quite fascinating. But I was, believe it or not, a stand-up comic, and I was on the road.
No way! I just did some stand-up for the first time. We took a class last year. That's great.
There you go. Well, it was that was something I decided rather than going to law school, I was going to go to New York, and I was with a theater company there, and I did stand-up kind of on the side, and my girlfriend and I, it's a long story, but my girlfriend and I split in New York, and rather than go through another winter in New York City, I said, you know what, I'm going back to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And no sooner did I arrive in the Bay Area than I was able to book a couple of commercials, a couple of voiceovers. Suddenly the career,
I love that stuff.
Oh my God, I should have been here all along. But I was in Los Angeles doing a set at the Improv, and I got this cryptic phone call on my way back home from my 8th grade history teacher, who I'd kept in touch with over the years, and he said, Michal, listen, my cancer has come back, and I'm going to need someone to substitute for the rest of the year for these 8th graders. Would you be interested? And I through my tears, I said, absolutely. Now I had, some bookings that I had to adjust and so forth, but I decided, if nothing else, I owed this guy, who was really the
Wow.
birth of kind of an intellectual awakening, as much as it can be expected in a 13-year-old. But he
Sure.
really helped set me on this trajectory of deep curiosity and critical thought, even as a young person. So I went into that classroom, my old classroom, and
Man,
I'm telling you, man, it was the most amazing experience because it felt like I just belonged.
that's
All
so
the
cool.
training I'd received on stage, be it in
Yeah.
stand up or Shakespearean work or whatever, all came to, very, very into sharp focus and stark relief. So
Wow.
I never looked back. I taught middle school, eighth grade history for 3 years, and then I got moved up to my old high school, and I taught economics and
Yeah.
political science for the next 16 years, and then out
Wow.
of that, I kind of fell into administration. That again was not something I really planned that much, but then
Mhm.
went on, got a doctorate, and here I am at now principal at Northgate High School.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's super cool. I
yeah,
mean,
it's been a great journey so far. And I'm not done yet. I got
no way. There's lots to do and lots more writing to do too. I think that's so cool because I went through broadcasting and have been doing voiceover and stand up. And I think you think about what message you're crafting more often when you're speaking to people, whether they be students, parents, or staff. I think that's
absolutely.
that's
And I
wonderful.
think the thing I liked most, just to put a finer point on this,
Yeah.
was um, mostly my audience for the eighth graders and even the high schoolers. They weren't drunk, so that made things a little bit easier. Most days, they're pretty sober. So
Yeah, well, pretty. Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
there's nothing like that second show on a Friday night when everybody's already 4 drinks
Oh
in,
man, and
tired.
it's doing some of your work for you.
Yeah,
No, we did Comedy Oakland a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a little bit of that effect. I'm like, wow, this material's really taking off here.
yeah, boy, it's
Um,
just
I think
lighting
it's
up.
I think it's neat that you got to work in your middle and your high school. One of the reasons that I came to Brentwood is that it reminded me of Stockton, where I grew up, and it reminded me of a city that's changed a lot. You watched a lot of the fields turn into housing developments. And I also remember being told a lot in Stockton that I was never going to make it in radio. And then when I was in Los Angeles doing it, it gave me that fuel to turn into positivity. And I like to give that to my students and tell them that you never let anyone except yourself decide when you're done with something. When you want to pursue something, you do it to the fullest. So I like that that is there too. When you came to administration and you say that you fell into it, what were some things and some motivations that carried you through your development as an administrator?
Well, what I started to recognize was that I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but I kind of started getting a sense that I wasn't improving geometrically, let alone exponentially, as in my craft as a teacher. I felt like I'd
Interesting.
kind of hit this plateau.
Interesting.
If I do say so, I think I did a pretty decent job. At least that was the feedback I got.
Great.
But there was something about it that burned differently in terms of my interior, and I was worried that could spell the end of I had 10 years minimum left on a in a career, and I did not want to be in a situation where I was phoning it in. And
Yes.
so I
Mhm.
started looking at education as a system as opposed to education as a classroom experience. And when I started looking systemically at what was going on, the administrative allure kind of started creeping in ways that I never expected. So I went and got a administrative credential and a master's, and I was particularly interested. My focus of study was on technology or technological integration in the classroom, and then I got a job as a vice principal. Now, I would say that the hardest job I've ever had in my life was probably being a roofer, where you're laying tar out. The
Sure. Yeah.
second hardest job I've ever had is being a vice principal,
Wow.
and almost the same level of difficulty and danger. I mean,
Wow.
you are a workhorse. You are grinding all the time. But you're doing it towards a vision, just like building a roof. You want to make sure that thing is sealed. You want to make
Mm.
sure you're covering everything, and it's the same thing as a vice principal. It doesn't take an awful lot of creativity, though. In some places, depending on your principal, you can kind of be given that license, go for it,
Right.
make it so, that type of deal. But boy, a lot of it is just like, hey kid, don't cut class. Here's your detention, or you're not supposed to smoke pot at school. so here's your suspension, or having, the parent come into you and say, well, how do you know my son or daughter is, guilty of cheating? I know you have it on film, but maybe it's a deep fake, or, whatever. I mean, you literally are dealing with, really, really kind of strange, entitled, and codependent behaviors that I think they were wearing, and they were hard carries. This job as principal, I came into a school that I think saw itself as performing beautifully, but when you really looked at the numbers, you saw that there were tremendous gaps, and so that was a difficult shift to kind of get that lens cleared off enough to where people could see themselves with a degree of accuracy, and then from there feel empowered to make change. And I think that's what real leadership does, I think, most effectively, is they help those that are in the position of, in this case, the faculty or the staff, help them see what exactly it is that they are doing and what gaps are availing themselves in this process of self-discovery. And so to that end, I would say that we have been pretty successful here over the last 6 years or so in making some significant shifts. We're seeing the curves in terms of, numbers and so forth go where they should go, as opposed to this, this insidious, steady creep downward. Now we're looking at a hockey stick.
Yeah. Okay. That's very nice. That's the right thing to see. It must be rewarding to see that those things are turning. How do you motivate your teachers to create a school and an environment where students can reach their potential and make those drives and those improvements? What are some of the things that you impart to your team?
Well, one of the things that I try to just communicate over and over again is it's never one of us. It's not me. I'm not doing it. We are doing it.
Nice.
And this whole me to we thing, I think, is really, really critical. And it's important for the kids to see and feel that too. I think that people tend to get involved with visions that they can help create. And so you help people along that path. And that certainly, in my view, at least, and in my experience as an educational leader, makes a massive difference in the kinds of change you can affect. If this were a top-down experience, basically you are dealing in some manner of, I guess I would say some type of dictatorial move one way or another, and nobody wants to work in that environment. I certainly don't.
No.
At the same time, I mean, if I need to make a unilateral decision, especially like in terms of student safety or something like that, I will. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I really look at this as inspiring a team. And so to that end, I mean, my experience as a coach were probably among the most useful.
Sure.
Because you can't. In my case, I was a water polo player and a water polo coach, and you can't get in the water and do it. You have to inspire the team to do it. And the same thing in the classroom. You can't fire, so you better inspire.
Nice.
And I think that that happens when we can agree where we are and agree where we need to go.
Perfect.
And then use the brilliance that you have around you and the people that have been hired to help you get there.
That's a nice pre-bell message for each day to remember that for teachers, for our students too. We can't move them. Let's see what we can do to see where we're at, and get us all to a higher level. I tell my students all the time, teach me too. Let's all learn. It's not me up here and you here. Let's all grow through this process and become better people too. And that's wonderful. I feel inspired, and I'm grateful to you, Principal Michal McAlister from Northgate High School. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
It's my pleasure, Danny. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And when that next book is ready, let's come on and talk about it and get that information out to everybody.
You got it.